Okay, everybody, this is my spoiler review of Your Honor Season 2, Episode 5. So I'm going to break this review into 3 parts. We'll talk about everything going on with Michael, then we'll go to the Baxters, and then we will go to Desire. So, how I've told you, I've been very impressed with this season so far compared to Season 1. There's a lot of things in this episode that had me scratching my head, and this was the first episode that felt a lot like Season 1 in the tone and some of the feelings of missing scenes or things not making sense. And then what really was bizarre to me, let me know if this was just in the critics version, but in the version I saw, they were playing a lot of the old score from season 1 that I had said that gave me headaches and I hated, with those high tones just overused. And I was just shocked they brought a lot of that back in this episode. But let me know if that was actually what was aired. So, for example, I had said in my last review that it was strange that Frankie didn't just look through Michael's phone to see who he was talking to, and seeing that this bestie character was someone suspicious working with Michael. So it seems like the show even highlights this error, because then it has Michael, in the aftermath of everything what happens, looks at the text from Bestie, which is Olivia, and one of them says, "You want to go back to prison? This can be arranged." Now imagine if Frankie just looked at the phone and saw that. That would change everything. So why also would someone like Olivia even send that in a text? So stuff like that just makes you scratch your head. Now, what was interesting about this episode is then when Olivia meets up with Michael and he catches up about everything that happened, she's like, when Baxter lowered that gun, you felt relief, didn't you? So this is important because this episode's really the first one we're seeing Michael get a little bit out of his funk. It's shown by the way he's reacting to the taste of peanut butter and how he's interacting with the dog again. You're seeing signs of old Michael seeping in here. But what works with that is it's almost like there's a Michael coming out again that feels like he's getting away with stuff here. And it leads to this twist and this big reveal with Nancy. And speaking of that, Nancy brings this information forward to Olivia that she got from this criminal that's brought in, and he talks about an old case. Okay, this feels obviously a little forced in how they wrote that, but so be it. But you see that the criminal says in the background he wasn't there when it went down, so you knew from that moment this man was talking about Michael. When Nancy brings this to Olivia, this is how we get him, is what Nancy says. So this is something that Olivia can put in her back pocket and use against Michael when having the Charlie threat that Charlie could get in trouble runs out, that she can't use it anymore. This would be the thing. Now, what we'll see by the end of the episode is when Nancy says this to Michael, that there was new evidence that you lied to police on your statement. Where were you on the night of your wife's murder? We know from last season that his wife Robin had cheated on him, and it seemed like she was Desire Gang, some kind of affiliation there, whether she was with someone in the gang or just knew them. But I'll never forget, in season 1, we learned that really important information about Robin in a recap of an episode, but never saw it aired on TV. I'll never forget that. But I love this twist. I love they're actually just dipping back into this, and it's a tough deal, right? The new showrunner season 2 has to kind of fix some of the slop that was set up in season 1 that wasn't answered, and he's going back and just looking into it. And it's interesting because I like that we're going to now learn as audience more about Michael we didn't even know, and that maybe he wasn't even this guy who has a likable side he always had in season 1. Even in this season, you still feel for the guy a bit, but if he's someone who had maybe some kind of rage fueled behind the death of his wife who was cheating, it's a different story. Then it really explains how he was able to cover up Adam's incident. Now, where things were a little sloppy to me, and what I'm talking about where it felt like just a scene or two, even a line or two was missing, it could have really helped, was when Michael quits the butcher job, because we know Olivia made him get a job and work here. So you're kind of wondering, how is he allowed to just do that? And also, when he goes to warn Charlie, goes to the mayor's office, so he's just allowed back in the mayor's office now. So what's tough about this is that Olivia was set up in the last episode that she wanted Charlie around, and that was going to be her way to get to the Baxters and wanted to get this deal done. But what would have really helped this episode is if we saw a conversation between Charlie and Olivia before he just agrees to work with her plan, because we have to see some kind of acknowledgement that he learned from Michael this episode that he can be in serious trouble by Olivia, but that conversation never happens with him and Olivia. That's why it gets a little muddy here with everything going on with Charlie, Michael, and Olivia. And because Olivia had told Michael originally if he says anything to Charlie that the deal's going to be off and that he's going to go back to prison. And you see, sure, later on Michael's like, I'd rather just go back to prison, but I just feel like, again, there had to be some conversation going on. Because even Michael says, Olivia here, I went with your scheme with Charlie, but that still wasn't elaborated enough. It was just started at the last episode with getting him to the party and meeting him with Jimmy. But it wasn't the full circle. Like, where did it get clear that he can go in the mayor's office and just have a conversation with Charlie with no one listening in? So that was kind of just didn't line up for me. But shout out here, Isaiah Whitlock Jr., who plays Charlie. He's always great, and this was a really great scene for him with Michael when Michael warns Charlie and confesses what he's done, that he snitched on him. But you see Charlie's banking on going with Olivia on this because hopefully it takes the Baxters down and that gets rid of a problem for him. And it's the same thing. It helps him live another day because the feds have stuff on Charlie. Now he can go to jail for serious time. But again, would have just liked a scene with him talking to Olivia about it, or another scene with Michael talking to Olivia about the Charlie situation. Now, when I'm talking about this episode, it had the first vibes that felt like season one, where there was like some things you kind of laugh at. It happens in the Baxter story with Gina in this scene with the cannolis, and she's, saying to Jimmy she's pissed that he would take a sacred position as Godfather and suggest someone like Charlie to be it. And she says, now eat your effing cannoli. That's the area of season one where you're like, is this camp? Are they doing this on purpose? I think a lot of times it's a cop-out when someone says something's camp, unless it's like clearly stated by the creative team. But this just felt like season one again, or something you just laugh at a moment like this. You're like, what? Like, what? Like, just a weird scene. So that was a little disappointing to me, just see that kind of vibe come back here, because I have not felt that all season. Now, I'm also going to say something that's probably unpopular, but this is how I feel. In a scene at the dinner table, we see with Carmine Conti, Gina, and Jimmy that Carmine and Gina want to go a more extreme route in handling the mayor than Jimmy does. But there's something that really stood out to me, especially in this scene, about Hope Davis's delivery as Gina. It just wasn't great. And it feels like she's either not giving or believing in the story as much anymore in season 2. It just feels like when you watch her with Michael Stuhlbarg and the actor of Carmine Conti, that she's not bringing that same level of just into fully the scene that the other two are in those moments. That's the feeling I'm getting. So I'm just going to say I've been a little disappointed with just the delivery of the lines of Hope Davis this season as Gina. It just does not seem that great to me. Sometimes she feels like she's just reading the lines and getting through them. So we'll also see with the Baxters a scene with Fia and Carlo, and they're talking about wanting to kill their parents. Jokingly, but obviously have feelings of hate towards their parents. And Carlo talks about using a popsicle. It's classic Carlo type of conversation going on. But he compliments Fia here and says she's the only one that's not like the rest of them, is stronger than all of them. And this is setting up why Fia would suggest Carlo as the godfather of her child. And I love characters like Gina condemning Fia's child to hell if it's not baptized. Meanwhile, Gina is somebody who has had a family burnt alive in their own home. So it's incredible hypocrisy, and sadly there's a lot of people like this. But you see, Fia is able to negotiate with Jimmy that she'll have him baptized if Carlo can be the godfather. So that kind of moves that story along. And then there's some questionable writing here, like this scene with Jimmy and Gina at night, and she just says, Jimmy, you had a hell of a day. You deserve a hell of a night. Yeah, so again, this episode just feels off the pace of being solid written drama as the previous episode. So again, I hope this is just a thing that happens here and doesn't continue the rest of the season. I feel like we'll be fine though. So now everything going on with Desire, Big Mo now clearly seeing Eugene knows Little Mo lied to her. So a lot of things not going right with Little Mo for Big Mo, and it messing up everything with the money. And also she's even more pissed at Little Mo because now she's involved with the cartel. But what's interesting about Big Mo's character is she really was about to kill her own nephew. And what stopped her from doing that was her girlfriend. She's like, you're nuts doing this to family. And it also, I believe, saved Eugene because Eugene is staying with Big Mo's sister. So just some kind of connection to family that's keeping Eugene alive. But Big Mo gives Little Mo a serious beating, and she says he is not family to her anymore and just gets rid of him. But like I predicted in my earlier reviews, I had said that Fia and Little Mo, they're paving the ways to kind of be the ones that have redemption arcs and go against their corrupt families, organizations, and this is going to be a big stepping stone for Little Mo because he's not in Desire anymore. So it can kind of change things around for him, and we've already seen so much of Fia being pinned against her own family. I still have an issue though where I'd said last episode, like, okay, you really want to start getting Desire storyline connected to the main plot a little more. We're kind of waiting for the shoe to drop here with Big Mo versus Gina and being in the bar next to her. They've set that up, but it's kind of stayed in its own storyline for a bit now, and I'm hoping it to kind of tie in, and hopefully that's with Little Mo next episode and how they can connect it to Michael, because it just feels like its own show at this point right now. So they really got to bring it in, because that's what I could feel like people during Desire storyline this episode. It's interesting, but what do we really care about is the Michael storyline. So you want just a little more connection to it. And I think that's somewhere where people can zone out a bit, especially in this episode. So I'm giving this one a 7.7. This was my least favorite of the season. It is the halfway point, but for having 4 out of 5 episodes really enjoying, that's not bad. And I hope, though, that this is just like the one case the whole season, that we get back on track. There's a really exciting twist, which gives me hope about learning about what happened with Robin and learning more about our main character Michael to make things more interesting, to just wrap up the show as a whole, if only 5 episodes left. So let me know what you thought down below. I love to hear your thoughts. I read every comment. I try to respond to as many as I can. Please make sure to also check out my reviews of The Last of Us I'm doing right now. I also do celebrity interviews, and please follow me at Steve Varley Show on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok for more of me, and I'll see you next time.